Good afternoon, Flosstube. It's Tuesday the 22nd of July. I'm Caroline from Caroline's Corner here in Leeds in West Yorkshire, and I'm joining you for Flosstube number 37. We made it, or I made it anyway. It's school holiday. Well, it's the school holidays. We broke up on Friday. It was a bit fraught thanks to Microsoft going down. I had a to-do list from hell of compliance things I needed to get finished before I broke up for the summer to make sure we could claim all the right funding and everything else, and no computer systems till lunchtime, which meant I was the last one at the office on Friday afternoon because I couldn't leave till I'd finished. But it got done. I don't think I forgot anything terribly urgent that won't, or certainly that won't wait till I get back in at the end of August. So yay, it's the summer, and it's almost been warm here for a change. It's been pretty dismal weather-wise so far, most of this month. Not that I'm complaining about the rain, we needed it, but really, it's felt more like March or October some days than July. So I've got my coffee and some water and a big pile of stitching to share with you. So if you're new here, this channel is about my crafts. There's not been a lot of knitting or quilting or sewing, so there won't be any of that today. It'll all be about cross stitch because this last half term has been a bit fraught. Just the wrapping everything up for the end of the academic year and learning all the new processes for my new job. So yeah, so I hope you like what you see. Please subscribe, like, comment, and all the rest of it, and let's crack on with what I've been working on. I don't have anything fully finished that I can share. I do have something that's fully finished. I'm going to the Big Stitch at the weekend, and I'm doing the smalls exchange, so I do have something. So I have finished, so fully finished, fully finished something. I just can't share it until after the weekend, but I will record a little piece and I'll put that on my next video. Otherwise, I have a major finish. I have finished my Fruits of the Vine. I took the class and started this piece in 2011, 13 years ago. I took the class with Ellen at Fobbles to do the Hussif and associated smalls. You can do the outside of the Hussif as a standalone sampler if you want. I'm going to make mine into a Hussif because wall space. So when you last saw this piece, I was working on the outside of the Hussif. So it would be May, so it would have finished all this bit off. So in June, I finished off the outside border. Now I went to Fobbles for a class of Janette Douglas at the end of May. So I did take Fruits of the Vine along for an anniversary visit. Bev did suggest I could stitch this again to hang on the wall, but there is no way on God's earth I am doing that border again. It's an awful lot of hard work. Those grapes are all tent stitch over one, and that's why it's taken me the best part of a year to do this bit. So I finished the sampler outside of the case in June, and then my July section was to finish the mattress pincushion that goes inside. So there we are. which is very similar to the bottom of the sampler on for the Hussif. So just get all the bits together. So I have the outside of the Hussif. I have a pin cushion that goes on the inside. I have a needle roll to go with it. Come back. There we go. That's the outside. That was what we stitched in the class to go through all the techniques that we needed. That's the inside of the needle roll. And then there is a scissor fob to go with it. So happy to get Fruits of the Vine done. The finishing will probably wait till next year because I have a CA Wells class fit piece that I finished stitching on a couple of years ago that I still need to assemble, and that is this summer's job. But what I'm thinking is if I go to the Modern Quilt Club retreat again next year, which I'm seriously tempted by, I might take this along to make a start on it. So I think it's 32 count fabric. It's definitely Zweigart. I'm not sure of the colour, and it's stitched with mostly dinky dyes, and there's a couple of Glorianas in there as well. So that's my threads. So yes, yay! So that one can go marinade in the to be finished pile for. Let's move my coffee since I don't want to get coffee on it for a while until I get to the finishing. So that was my big finish. Very, very pleased to have that one off the whip pile after 13 years. So there will be a new focus piece, and I'll get onto that when I get onto my plans. So what else have I been working on? Well, shall we start with Whip Go? So when I last recorded at the end of May, I was working on this piece from Just Nan, which is And Many More, which was a needle case that she did as an exclusive for the Silver Needle. This is a companion piece to a scissor case called 20 Flowers, which I stitched and finished several years ago. So here we go. And this is where I got up to on Whip Go. When you last saw it, I was just stitching on the outside. So I've done a little bit more on the border of the back of the case. I didn't get as far as I wanted to because I got busy and I went away to Fobble's bag there. So, but yeah, hopefully when I pick it up again next year for Whip Go, I will get this bit finished. So even if I don't get any further, but pleased to get some progress in on this. It's being stitched on lamb's wool linen using Splendor threads. And this was a shop exclusive about 20 years ago. Yeah. So I started it in 2019, I think. Is it 19? No, 20. January 2020. And it's because I felt it had marinated in the stash for too long at that point. So, have you seen Just Nan's putting a new sampler out? There was a group of us at the Janette Douglas class all saying, I don't really like the little mice and fiddly things that she's been doing. Oh, I'd love a new sampler. And then we worked out how long she'd been designing and thought, yeah, she's allowed not to have moved on and decided, because she's done a lot of samplers over the years, and it's okay, we'll let her off. And then the following week I get an email, the newsletter drops in my inbox, and she's doing a lovely new sampler, which I have ordered, obviously, because I think I've got virtually every sampler she's ever designed. I might be missing one or two, but she's not actually designed one for 10 years. But like I say, given the number of samplers she's done, there's several on the wall behind me. Is there any down here that are just Nan? No, the just Nan ones are all on the top row, which you can't see. I'll have to film those at some point. So anyway, I digress. That was Whip Go for May. Whip Go for June. The first project I picked up to do was the piece we got given at the Great British Sampler Weekend last year. The sampler is A. Robson, but actually what I'm working on is the pin cushion. I will stitch the sampler at some point, but it's the pin cushion I'd started. And here we go. So when I picked it up, I'd done the outside border on the front top, and I think I'd got the T in. So I finished off the top of the pin cushion and made a small start on the side. I only had about 5 days stitching on this one because of the length of time it took me to finish Fruits of the Vine. So, but you know, nice to see progress. This is being stitched on some 40 count wood smoke by Tabby Cat and using a Vera Soie silks that we were given in the kit. And Michelle's given us plenty of fabric, so I will have plenty to stitch the sampler once I've stitched the pincushion. What I won't have is the silk, but I've plenty of greens and reds in my stash that I can use to stitch the sampler with. We got some Saju needle thread winders as part of our gifts at the sampler weekend, so so that was the 1st of June's Whip Go. Second piece that got pulled was Remember Me by Sheepish Designs. And I got about a week on that one. So what I did this time was take all the rows across to the middle. So I'm on that big vine and almost over to the finished on that one. So I'm getting very close to the halfway point. I think I'm slightly past a third done on this. So this was a start in 2022. So I'm quite pleased with my progress on that one. It's being stitched and using the Call for DMC, which are lovely soft colours, on some lambswool linen. Now I got the chart back in the early 2000s. I was in the Stash Enhancement programme with traditional stitches. So I got the chart and the linen in that as part of that, where Janice would send you some threads or just some accoutrement or a chart every month. So I was in it for a while, and then I switched to Gloriana Collector's programme for a bit as well. So So, life before kids, when I actually had money and I could sign up for these things. But hey, got some really nice things from it. Just some coffee before I move on to what I'm currently working on. So those were June's Whip Go numbers. So I'm currently working on the first of July's projects. Finishing that pincushion took a lot longer than I'd hoped, just because I just quite a lot of evenings when I was too knackered to stitch after work. So this is by another With Thy Needle design. It's Quaker Hornbook. This is a design that Ellen offered through guilds, so Sampler Guild. I got this through the Sampler Guild when it first came out. Again, had it in my stash an awful long time. So, and it came with the hornbook to use, which is another reason why I want to get it done, so I can actually get some of this stuff out on display rather than stuck in a drawer. So your two ways of doing this, you could either stitch it on 36 or 40 count over 2, or over 1 on 32 count. Now, because I had a scrap of Lakeside linen in Vintage Luna left over from something else, I decided to stitch it over 1 on 32 count. And when I picked it up at the weekend, I had all of the top half of this. I'd got the outside of the cartouche done. I'd done the swan and the tree at the top, and I was working on the vine underneath. So I've now finished the vine underneath, taking that up. I had wondered if I could get this finished, but I won't have enough stitching time, so I'll definitely get it to the state where I can finish it next year when it gets called for Whip Go again. Yeah, so I'm stitching this on some Lakeside Vintage Luna, and the thread I'm using is a Gloriana silk from when I was in the collector's program with traditional stitches, and this is colourway Pacific Blue. Ellen uses a lot of blue in some, especially her Quaker designs, so I decided that was a good colour, and I am very much enjoying and working on that one. So yeah, so I'll work on it for another couple of evenings, and then I shall switch on to my next Whip Go piece for July, which I'll go on to when I get to plans. So that's Whip Go, that's where I'm up to. So then on to the larger whips I've been working on. I'm part of the Yorkshire Stitchers group on Facebook, and they do a thing called Roll the Dice. So you select 12 projects that you're going to work on over the year. Ali rolls the die, as a 12-sided die. She rolls it, and you stitch on the number of the project that is called. I'm just stitching on, so I've nominated 12 of my large projects because I wanted to see some progress on some of them, move them on from being just a tiny little start in a lot of cases, and I've been quite enjoying it. So I tend to work on these on the weekends, unless I'm on holiday, in which case I get some morning stitching. I don't normally get morning stitching, but I reckon if I stitch Saturday and Sunday in the morning, that's at least 10 hours in a month. On a big project, it's enough to see a decent amount of progress. So last time I was working on Anne Grant, 1829 by Shakespeare's Peddler. I had a couple of days left to go in the month, so I did get, bear with me because Anne is a big girl, Not quite as big as Andale, but big enough. So I was working on this top border and I finished the sort of olive greens. I put the buds in, so I just need to stitch the flowers in next time I pick it up. Very, very pleased with how much I got done on Anne Grant, because when I picked it up to start, it was just a tiny little bit of red in the corner and one green V. So the amount of may not seem like a lot of progress, but the sheer amount of progress I got done in May, I am very, very pleased with. And like I say, I actually feel like I've got a much more substantial start on Anne, and definitely love stitching on her. She is going to be an absolute beauty when I get her finished. I'm stitching on 40 count latte linen from Northumbria's Sample House with mostly the call for silks. The only differences are Teresa calls for a couple of thread gatherer silks, which I couldn't get hold of in the UK. So I'm switching them out for a couple of water lilies, which I matched to the recommended DMC that Teresa gave on the pattern. So that is Anne Grant. The next number to be called corresponded to Toccata number 1 by the Drawn Thread. Like Just Nan, I've always absolutely loved the Drawn Thread. Now you can see some Drawn Thread charts behind me. That one at the end is Drawn Thread, that's Wildflower Garden. That's Drawn Thread, that's Teaching Sampler. Oh, there is a Just Nan, that's Barnaby's Journey there in the middle behind my head. The others are Shepherd's Bush. I love Drawn Thread, and there was a point where I bought everything she put out. I have 2 huge folders full. I didn't get around to stitching Toccata number 1, which came out 20 years ago. I did stitch Toccata number 2 with a friend, which was the goldwork one, which I've done. I know I've got number 3 all kitted up, which was white work. I need to check whether I've got the rest. If I haven't, I'm going to have to get them. So anyway, a friend very kindly sent me the chart and all the supplies. So I'm using all the called for silks, which are mostly needlepoint. There's a couple of Access Commodities, a soy perle and linen thread. So Gloriana, there's Medici, a water lilies and a watercolour wildflowers. And I am really pleased with my progress on Toccata number 1. When I picked this up at the beginning of June, I've got the top, I got a couple of borders, I got the borders across, and I think I'd done about first quarter of the little squares. Yeah, I think I'd done up first 2 lines, the little squares. I was away with some stitching friends in the Peak District beginning of June as well, which helped, but I am from there down. I'm at that is the halfway point on Toccata number 1. So to have got so much progress on something is absolutely fantastic. This is a really, really fun stitch because every little square is like a little finish. and the different techniques. Absolutely loving working on this one. So yeah, so I'm not sure on the fabric, I can't remember what it calls for. It calls for antique ivory, but I'm not sure if that is antique ivory. It's 32 count anyway. It might be elegant bean because Lois was kitting up a lot of, when she had elegant stitch, she was kitting up a lot of drawn thread designs with her elegant bean dyed fabric. So that was June. So for July, the dice called another Just Stand chart. This is Black Magic, which I started because my friend sent me the silk pack, and it's been sat there since the chart came out, which again, almost 20 years. So given I'd got all those absolutely gorgeous silks to use, I figured I'd better start stitching it. So I started this one in 2021. It's just on a random piece of white linen from my stash. It's not very nice white linen. I think it's witchlet, which has always been a bit iffy. It just happened to be the right size. What I didn't realise when I started stitching this was just how much over one there is. Most of this centre section is over one, and then there is an over one border that goes all the way around. So I'm following Nan's advice and I'm not going to leave it all to the end, hence stitching this black border, the outside border in. So I did the centre section. When I picked this up, I had that middle line of verse and I'd made a start on those two corner flowers. So I have stitched most of that centre section and the border around, all around. Well, by the time I put this down at the end of the month, I will have got the border all the way around and one of the flowers. Now I did that as a way of stitching down so I could get the outside border, make sure the outside border was right. So with a view that when I pick it up again, I can start stitching the over one border in between stitching everything else, so it is less of a slog. So see how much more I get done. I'm hoping to get that finished and perhaps get the bit next to it finished. I certainly will get the centre finished. I hope to get the outside border done, which is substantial progress on something that just had, say, one line of stitching when I picked it up. So it's all about the progress this year, and I'm very, very pleased with the progress that I've made on my three. Just dedicating myself to one big one a month seems to be working really well from a point of view of getting the progress. So yeah, so you should when I do next do a whip roundup, you shall no doubt see where I finished off on Black Magic and what I'm working on for August. So the only other whip I'm working on is on a Sunday evening. I am stitching on Teresa Wensler's The Guardian for the Year of the Dragon Sal, organised by Floss and Friends, I think it is, and Hugo Stitcher, two Canadian floss tubers. So when I saw the Sal, I had this started. I had just restarted because if you remember, I stitched it with my fabric the wrong way around. And yeah, and I am really pleased with how far I've got just stitching on it on a Sunday night. So I have even just started the dragon. Yay! After all that sky and cliff and greenery, not to mention border. Yeah, I'll have to do some more. So yeah, so not really at a quarter done. I'm probably at about a sixth maybe done. Again, substantial progress to say when I picked it up, I had a tiny little bit in the corner up there. Since February, I've done all the rest, which I'm really, really pleased about, because I didn't want the thought of leaving that sat there for several years and then getting to it. Was, at least when I put it away, I doubt I'm not going to finish it before the sale finishes. So I'm stitching on some random cream even weave from my stash and using the Call for DMCs. I'm stitching this. This is the kit from Leisure Arts I bought many years ago. Like I say, it's not the kit fabric because I messed up with kit fabric, but there we go. That's what it will look like when it's finished. So there you have all my whips. That was a bit of a whistle-stop tour through them. So we'll get on to my one new start, which was the class piece from Janette Douglas. So just after I last recorded, that weekend I was heading off to Fobbles for a 2-day class with Janette, which I was absolutely loved. It's the first time I've met Janette and had a class with her, and she was fantastic. The class piece was this sampler called Catherine Finlayson, which she had acquired on a previous trip to the Lake District, where she's taught for Bev several times, and it's an absolute beauty. As Janette said, very much not her wheelhouse when it comes to colours, but they are gorgeous. She had the original with her alongside her stitched model. I do have a picture and I will insert that here. And Janette had designed for the class some smalls to go alongside the sampler. And it was up to us. There's a pin pillow, there's a scissor fob and a scissor case. It was up to us which we started with. Some people started with the smalls, some people started with the sampler. I opted to start with the sampler. It's being stitched in silks. Janette gave us some lovely thread drops. So those are the colours I've started stitching with. Yes, I do stitch with very, very short lengths of silk. Probably not so much problem with the Janette sampler, but things like the Witchlet fabric that I'm using for the Just Nan. It's quite harsh on the silk, so especially a Verissoir I find tends to get very fuzzy very quickly. So in order to stop that, I stitch with quite short lengths. And these are the colours that I've not put on the floss drops yet because I've not needed them yet. The fabric is 36 count fawn from Picture This Plus, and that is what oops, wrong way around. That is what I got stitched. So I started with the little vase in the corner and then just stitch the border vine. Haven't quite got all the way around yet. So that was 2 days stitching on Kathleen Finlayson. In between chatting and shopping and stitching and chatting and more shopping. So yeah, loving working on that one. I'm really looking forward to working on it some more when it next comes up. Well, probably not this year, but hopefully I will, hopefully it'll come up next year. Janette very kindly also gave us a finishing kit for the smalls that she put together. So obviously, while I was at Fobbles and actually had access to a shop, I bought some stash. Of course. So here we go. I didn't go in with a definite shopping list. There were a few things that were, if Bev had them in stock, I definitely wanted. Not least the latest releases from Blackbird Designs. A little bit of spring. I love that sampler. And Moments of Grad Grace. I didn't buy the other book because I already have two of the charts that were in it, because a friend was lucky enough to go to the Shepherd's Bush retreat, wasn't going to stitch the charts, so she gifted them to me. So yeah, when I'll get to them, but after that it was a case of browsing to see what there was. So I also got Stacey Nash Caroline's sampler sewing bag. Plum Street Samplers Clementine, because the kitty looks very much like mine if I put a bit more white on her. And maybe stitch her in Whisper because she's a very fluffy cat. Harvest delivery. I have Yuletide delivery, I have spring delivery, so now I've got Harvest to go with that. I bought Liza Knight by Hands Across the Sea Samplers because Bev is selling off her Hands Across the Sea Samplers. I got Elizabeth Hunt by With Thy Needle and Thread. And obviously Bev had a roadshow of a lot of Janette's designs. So I picked up the stitch tray set and the silk pack that goes with it. At which point I mentally totted up. The stitch pack alone is 47 quid, at which point I thought, perhaps better stop now. But given it's all stitched in Gloriana and Thread Gatherer and Belle Soie, it's way more economical to buy this thread silk pack. So yeah. So someone had this stitched and brought it along. She hadn't got it finished, but the stitching was lovely. So I'm looking forward to getting to that one at some point. And then obviously Beth sells fabric as well, so I bought a pack of fabrics. I have a little bit of other stash. Because there were two Scarlet House exclusives. There was the one for homespun needlework on Facebook, which is nice, but I couldn't see myself rushing to stitch it. And then Tanya did one for Kitten Stitcher, and I loved the one for Kitten Stitcher, which is Mary Finley. That was just my sampler, style of sampler. Then I liked the one for the homespun needlework, but not so much that I would needed to get it as an exclusive, because I strongly suspect Tanya will release it in a year or two, and I can pick it up then if I decide I do want to stitch it. Not influencing that decision was the fact that I still have last year's exclusive by Tanya unfinished in my boxes of kits, unstarted rather, in my boxes of kits. So they're a lot of money and Kitten Stitcher was just selling the chart. She will sell it kitted up, but I just thought, well, I'll just get the chart this time round. It's calls for needlepoint silk, and I do have quite a large stash of needlepoint silk. And obviously no sampler could travel alone, especially because Kitten Stitcher, the shipping is reasonably expensive. It's a flat rate, and the flat rate is more than the cost of the chart. So I took the opportunity to get a couple of Brenda Gervais charts that I love, and because you can't get her charts over here, she won't ship to the UK. Her choice, obviously, it's her business, and it's obviously not financially worthwhile for her to do it, but it does make it difficult unless she works through the distributor, which is why I could get that one, because her booklet style charts, when she releases one like that, you can get the distributors carry them. They don't carry them when they're chart packs, unfortunately, or she doesn't work with the distributor on those, which is a shame. So I got every opening flower which I've wanted since it came out, and I got The Light of Winter. To make it sort of worthwhile paying the postage from Teresa. So that's the stash. So on to plans, because I thought I had my plans set for what I was going to do for the rest of the summer and into September, and then I watched this morning, I watched Narissa of Narissa Stitching Lifestyle. Now I'm sure you all already watched Narissa. Her stitching's amazing, her sample walls are to die for. I'm deeply envious of the amount of stitching she gets, but she's at a different phase in her life to me. And she was talking about her stash sampler starts. Now, I have more than 8 samplers in my stash I could start. However, I am trying not to start too much this year. And I know just how much stitching time I don't get in sampler September. So I'm going to have a sampler August. And I'm going to do stash sampler stitching, which was her other hashtag, and work on all my reproduction samplers, whips, that are not going to get called for Roll the Dice because they're not on that list. I've got 6. So they're all going to get a few days through August, through while I'm off work, and I've got plenty of stitching time to see a little bit of progress on all of them up to start of September when I go back to work. So if you just bear with me, I'll just lift everything up off the floor. And of course it's all just fallen back on the floor. So the samplers I'm going to work on are Hannah Coates, which I've got a fair bit done on if you've been around here for any length of time, by Hands Across the Sea. So I have got a good chunk of the across the bottom. I'm doing across the bottom because it's mostly solid stitching along here with the house and the grass and the animals. And I'm past the halfway point, I think. Or about, yeah. Excuse me, it's all falling to bits. So yeah. So come on, play nice. There we go, that's better. So yeah, so Hannah Coates. So I'll do a few days on Hannah Coates, get a bit more of the grass done, get a bit more of the house filled in. Last time I worked on this, I can't remember when I last worked, I think it might have been at the Great British Sampler Weekend, when I was doing loads of the fill-in while I was listening to all the speakers. So yeah. So I get the house done, there's another person, there's another one of those birds on the other side. And that is because I made a start on the bottom because the bottom is pretty much solid stitching. And actually this is one of the samplers that Narissa is going to start, and my guess is, even though I started several years ago, she will still finish before me. But it is fun to stitch. I am stitching this on 40 count light mocha by Zweigart, and I am using the Call for DMCs. The next sampler I'm going to work on, second sampler I will work on first, stash sampler stitching. Try saying that very fast. Is the Scarlet House Rachel Howells, 1856. I'm stitching Rachel using the Call for MPI. And she's also being stitched on 40 count, but this time I'm just plain cream linen. So, and that's where I've got to with her. Just got a couple of sides of the border done. So I finish this flower and then take the border across the bottom and see where we get to in the time I've got available to work on Rachel. She's a beauty, and it would be absolutely lovely to get some more stitching in on her. Number 3 is Marianne Aldred, which I bought, well, again, when it was an exclusive through Homespun Needleworks Facebook group, although it is now released by Needlework Press, which is a nice little sampler. So I bought the kit at the time, so it came with the Call for Classic Colourworks. And 40 count vintage light mocha. So, as you can see, last time I worked on it, I just got the little basket in at the top. So, and a load of border. So, time to move that one on a little bit further and see where I get to. See if I can get another motif in on that one. Sample number 4, it's another Hands Across the Sea. It's Rosa Ada Featherstone, which was an exclusive with Hobby House Needleworks. I don't think it's available anymore. I got the kit from Hobby House. I opted for the overdyed cottons kit. I can't remember what the fabric was, other than it's 40 count, so I forgot to make a note of it. And that's where I've got to. I started this a couple of years ago, so it'd be nice to get a bit further with this one. Even if it's just getting the border down a bit further, maybe finishing that motif off. Maybe even making a start on that big ass house, to quote Stitchy Sally. We'll see. Again, she's a nice colourful little girl, and it would be lovely to see a bit more progress on her. The fifth sampler that won't get work, that I've got, is another exclusive from Homespun Needlework Group. It was Elizabeth Broadhead 1833 by Fox and Rabbit, and again I got the kit for that one. I opted for the overdyed cottons rather than the silks. And I am stitching this on Fox and Rabbit white clay 40 count, and that's where I got to when I started it. So be nice to get a bit more border done, maybe finish the carnation that I started. Just move that on a little further. Love the colours on this one, that's nice and muted. And last but no means least of my reproduction samplers is Florence Mary Dickinson. Again, was an exclusive with Hobby House Needleworks a couple of years ago. Again, don't know if they've got any available still. I have the third one that they've done, the Martha Walmsley, sat on the shelf, again not started, because I decided not to do too many new starts this year. So using the Call for Creme Brulee Tabby Cat linen, I opted to use the DMC rather than the silks, just for affordability. And I've got a tiny little bit done in that corner. I've got the vine all the way around. So do a lot more of the border, probably do some more of the border because there's quite a lot of colour changes and things in the border. Brenda in the Serial Starter has finished hers recently, and she said the same thing about the borders. You need to do it as you go, because don't leave it to the end, and I'm probably not going to do that, but maybe reward myself with another motif in the middle. So those are my 6 samplers, and I'm going to work on those through August. Thank you, Narissa, for the inspiration. I will have a new sampler start. I'm going to start a sampler for my birthday in September. Probably the last year's exclusive Sampler House one, Scarlet House one rather, to get that on the go. Let me pick the last of the stuff up that I've got out here. So for the rest of July, once I have done my stint on Quaker Hornbook, we have the last Whitby call for July is a Scarlet House, a Sampler Grows. I've done a tiny amount in the house, so it'll just be a case of working some more in the house and seeing if I can get onto the garden and the rest of it. I'm stitching this on a tiny sliver of pearl barley from Lakeside 40 count that I had left over from stitching. If you've been around here for a long time, you'll know I stitched Dorothy Walpole and still need to get Dorothy framed. Never mind. That's going to be ouch. And using some of the Call for silks and then others that I matched to the DMC, converted from the DMC from my stash, because I'm a fairly large collection of Avera Soie and needlepoint silk that I've collected over the last 20 years, and if you want to know, if you can see there's two different colours of silk. If they're the same number, that's the joy of Avera Soie. So, of course, colours have changed a lot in some cases, so I want to use some of these up. So that will get about 5 days at the end of the month. And then, as I said, I'm going to the Big Stitch this weekend. I bought, there were some exclusive designs available. I bought some of them. One of the ones I've bought is by Jacob of Modern Folk Embroidery, because he's the featured designer there this year. So I'm going to start that one because it's just a single colour design that he's done for the retreat. He's done as the red sampler. I was digging through stash to see what I was going to use, and I found I've got this 36 count Heather by Lakeside Linens. Again, I've had this for an awfully long time. I was in a Fabric of the Month club with Silk Weaver about 3 or 4 owners back in the early 2000s, when they were about the first people doing hand-dyed linen. And this is from when Lakeside Linens started, so I don't know if they do it anymore. However, it's not my usual colour, because it's not really a sampler colour as such. But then when I was digging through, because I was going to do Jacob's sampler in red, I saw this and thought, oh, okay, do you know what? I can use that for that. So I'm going to just do it in DMC bright white. I think will look lovely on that purple. So that will get started this weekend. And the only other thing to share is what my new focus piece is going to be. My new focus piece is going to be Glastonbury Garden, which is a sewing pocket by Lauren Sauer of Forget-Me-Nots and Stitches. I took this class with Lauren in London with the late Susan Albury of Hanging by a Thread in 2012. And to be fair, I'm not too far off actually finishing this. I just have the 3 pockets on there to stitch. So I've got, so that long pocket, which is part way done, and two 3D pockets. So my plan is to do a pocket a month in August, September and October, and then we'll be done and we move on to something else. So this is my start on the long pocket. So yeah, so got some of the other pockets done. And the outside of the case and the inside of the case, and some discoloration of the fabric down the bottom, so I'm going to have to give it a bit of a clean. That's the only problem with stuff sitting there for 12 years. So anyway, I'm hoping to get this done. I mean, I was hoping to get this done a while ago because I put 2021 on the little pincushion that goes in the middle. So yeah, it is a beautiful piece and deserves to get finished. It's all being stitched in Gentle Art sampler threads, so it's quite a limited stitch palette with just the greens and light blue and a light pink. I think that's everything I've got for you, but it's probably going to be long enough. Now I'll see if I can get this uploaded before the weekend and before I go to the big stitch, which I'm really looking forward to because I'm going to see some folk I've not seen for an awfully long time there, and some people, hi Alison, that I have that watch. So if you're going to be there, do come and say hello. So yeah, so have a good summer. I shall try and record something before I go back to work and let you know how I'm doing with all my samplers. Please like and subscribe if you don't already, and I shall see you towards the end of the summer, assuming we get more of a summer. I think we've had summer, to be technically strictly accurate. Hey ho. Right, enough rambling from me. I shall see you all soon. Bye bye.